walk, and it's just so much more exciting. So
What was that again?
that it's called the International Crane Foundation, and it is in Baraboo, Wisconsin, which is about 2 hours north of Madison. And they also have cranes migrate through that part of Nebraska in the fall as well. So these are the photos of the cranes that are around the world. So this is our sandhill right here. This is our sandhill, and this is our whooping crane right up here. So as you look at these birds, tell me what you notice that might be some similarities in them.
They all have long necks.
Okay, long necks, that's good.
Long bills.
Long beaks.
Long beaks, okay.
Red tops.
Red tops. But is the red top in the same spot?
No.
Oh, isn't that cool? That is so cool, right?
Long legs.
Very long legs, very long legs. Yeah, you guys are good at, you must be crane birders. You all know what you're saying. But yeah, so they all have, I went to Thailand many, many years ago, and I bought a t-shirt that says same, on the front of it says same, but on the back it says but different. And so I think that's the way I view all these cranes. They're same, but different. So the cranes are very, very, very old. There are, I've heard anywhere from 2 million, and I read somewhere that there was a fossil found in Nebraska that they have dated to be 9 million years old. And the cranes, the bone structure of the crane today is the same structure that they find in the fossils. So this is a living dinosaur. It's basically, we are seeing a dinosaur. And so when you talk about, think of the changes in climate that these birds have experienced over these, millions of years. I mean, it's really, talk about survivors, right? Talk about learning how to adapt. So this is a crane found with the terracotta warriors. Has anyone ever seen the terracotta warriors? They're from yeah, they're amazing. They were exhibited once in Sacramento, and I went to see them, and they're fantastic. So this is 200 BCE, which is a long time ago. So cranes, Latin name is Antigone canadensis, aka sandhill cranes. So here in North America, and I'm going to jump ahead, but then I'm not going to keep going ahead. I'm going to come back. So we're lucky that we have 2 subspecies of sandhill cranes. And we get both subspecies here in California. One is called the lesser and one is called the greater. And I'll talk a little bit more about those later in the presentation. But again, we're seeing some of those same characteristics that you all noted before. We noted the really long legs, and what, don't they come in handy when they're wading in water? And look at those long beaks. Doesn't that come in handy when they go to look for some food, right? They don't have to, it all works together, and they've got the red head. And you notice that some of these feathers are tinged in like a rust. And that's because they will flick up dirt that's got, I think it's iron oxide in it, and that will stain their feathers. So sometimes when our sandhill cranes come to us in the fall, they're very rust colored. And then after there's been quite a few, downpour of rain, then that rust will kind of leave their feathers. So tonight we're going to talk about how to identify a sandhill crane. We're going to look at them close up and pay attention to their characteristics. Then I'm going to talk about sandhill crane behaviors and why they winter in the Central Valley. And I have a question. I thought about this on my drive up here. Do you hear them fly overhead here?
Not very often.
Not very often. And then I want to end talking about some of the challenges that sandhill cranes face. Because, really all bird species are facing challenges, but sandhill cranes, particularly here in the Central Valley, are facing some pretty substantial challenges. So what do we see in this picture? Tell me what the white birds are.
Yes.
Egrets.
Egrets, a great egret, a great egret. You may not be able to see this real clear, but there's some little birds down here. Can you tell what those are? They're yellow legs. I'm not gonna make you squint. They're yellow legs, but they're all, they're all mixed in with sandhill cranes. But the egrets and the cranes have some same, but different, right? They both have that long neck. They both have, long legs. But yet the coloring is so very different. And notice, I'll talk about this again in a second, but notice the egret neck. That egret right there in the middle. What do you notice about how it's holding its neck? Kind of in an S shape, right? And you don't see cranes do that. Cranes' neck are straighter, they'll be bending down to eat. They don't do that. They don't do that S shape. So how you identify a sandhill crane? If you take a look at what you're familiar with first. So these are great egrets. So as you look into birds, as a birders, we learn, what do you look at first when you're trying to identify a bird? I'm sorry?
His head.
His head, the shape of the head, or how big the head is. What else might you look at if you're trying to identify?
Color.
I'm sorry, color. Color, right? Okay, any other ideas?
Seen for foraging.
The beak, right? Do they have a long beak or is it short? That kind of means that they're like nutcrackers, right? We also pay attention to where their eyes are on their head. We should be paying attention to where their eyes are on their head. So these are, as we said, these are great egrets. And where are they? Up in a tree. Yes. So that's, they can be on, the ground and they can be in a tree. But sandhill cranes don't have that capacity. They don't have that capacity. So if you think you see a sandhill crane and you see it in a tree, you are wrong. It is not a sandhill crane. And what's this one? Great blue heron. So as we look at these, if we look at these two, the blue heron on the left and the egret on the right, what are some similarities that we notice? That S-shaped neck, right? Long beaks, long legs, right? Long legs and pretty long feathers. Pretty long feathers. So I read this last night and I'm like, I didn't know this. How does anyone know how much a great blue heron weighs?
8 pounds.
5 to 8 pounds. I'm like, that can't be. They have to weigh more than that. So birds just are so fascinating, right? Because there's always something to learn. There's always something to learn. So, but again, look at where these two birds are resting. They're on a tree branch. They're on a tree branch. And again, you will not be able to see a crane on a tree branch because they cannot do that, and I will tell you why. So here is a picture. I can't tell you if this is a lesser or a greater because they are very, very similar, except for their size. So the lessers are between 3 and 4 feet tall. They only weigh between 6 and 8 pounds. Their wingspan is approximately 6 feet, which is, more than what I can stretch my arms out to. And their the length is 38 to 46 inches, and then their bill is about 4 inches long. Now the graders are a foot taller. They weigh more. They're 10 to 14 pounds. Their wingspan is bigger, their length is bigger, and their bill is longer. But if you see them together in a field, and we often have that opportunity at Woodbridge, and you may think, oh, that one's shorter, it must be a lesser. Well, that could be a greater standing in a hole. So you can't go just by the height of the bird. And I can never remember this, and maybe Kathy, you remember, but I can never remember if I think the lesser has a more round head, and the greater has a flatter head, and the length of the beak. And the beak and the beak.
There's more of a stop on the lesser side.
Right. So this is by the background in this picture, this is probably taken in Florida. by the plants in the background, and that's a non-migratory. There is a non-migratory cranes in Florida. Yes, sir.
So is this labeled as subspecies then?
They are subspecies of sandhill cranes, yes. Wow. So the plumage, the adults are silver and gray, and they may have some of those brown markings, which I mentioned, which is probably coming from the flicking of the iron oxide dirt up onto their feathers. They think that they do that for a couple of reasons, but we're not inside a crane's brain, so we don't really know. But scientists and people who study these birds think it might have to do with controlling mites and fleas and bugs. But it also may make them feel pretty. Just make them feel pretty. Yeah, a little blush, a little lipstick, I'm good to go, right? But males and females both do that. Now here is why crane, you're never going to see a sandhill crane in a tree, roosting in a tree. They have one stubby toe, but it's it's a little bit higher up their ankle, so they can't grasp. They cannot grasp a branch. If a sandhill crane were to attempt that, they would literally go, they would literally fall. So that's why you're never going to see a sandhill crane roosting in a tree. You'll see night herons, you'll see green herons, you'll see blue heron, you'll see egrets, you'll see those birds up in the tree, but you won't see a sandhill crane. Yes, sir.
Is there any evolutionary reason why in your study, why they haven't evolved to be able to perch and roost?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I don't know, but that's a great Google question. And it might be because they really don't have a need for it. Because they're, we still have an appendix, but we really don't need an appendix, right? And so they just don't have a need for it because they have learned to adapt, and the rest of their features work together, that they can still get food and they can still be safe.
Yeah, the safe part, that's
right. Safety is really huge. They have very sharp claws, really sharp claws. And they use that. Who's a gardener in here? Anybody a gardener in here? Do you know that three prong little hoe thing that you use with, you get down on your knees and do that? That's what they do with their feet, their toes. They will literally scratch in the dirt to bring up anything. They are, we'll talk about what they eat in a little bit, but they're rooting for food, and they also use their feet as a weapon. Their feet as a weapon, because and I have pictures when we'll talk about under the crane behavior section. And then their legs are very long, and it helps them walk in grassy water. And here's the interesting thing about this. So this is ankle. This is knee. Knee is way up there in their body. And I went to a workshop. Has anyone heard of a gentleman named John Muir Laws?
Yeah.
Okay, I went to one of his nature journaling classes, and oh my God, this man is amazing. Even if you don't want to draw, just go watch his videos because they're so fascinating. But he said, and I've never had the opportunity, but I'm going to look for it when I go to Nebraska. If a sandhill crane is walking toward you, they walk like this. See if I can not fall over. They walk like this. They look like they're crossing their legs when they're walking. And I did find a video, but I couldn't figure out how to upload it. But you could also, it's just fascinating because we always see them walking, sideways. If you're in a blind on the river, they're going to be walking, horizontal to you. But if you see them walking toward you, it almost looks like they're gonna, their legs are gonna cross. Yeah, Kathy.
I pose a question to everyone. Does a sandhill crane have a tail?
Ooh, what do you think? Does a sandhill crane have a tail? Oh, that's a question. What do y'all think?
There's something in the back there.
Yeah, they have a little bit of a bustle. Which is right. Right, it's hidden by their feathers. And you can't even when a sandhill crane, and this is another thing I learned from John Muir Laws, when a sandhill crane does this with their feathers, you can't even really see their primary feathers because they hide them. They hide them. but I have pictures of the primary feathers.
That's mostly wing feathers.
Yeah, these are wing feathers. These here, these are all wing feathers here. The primary feathers are. So here's a better picture of the feet. So on the left is a great blue heron, and you can see the long toe, the longer back toe, and this is what helps them wrap around the branch, the tree limb. And if you notice, here's the sandhill crane foot, and there's that little tiny toe. And it looks longer than it is from this perspective, because it's really not very long at all. Not very long at all.
It makes sense though that the great blue heron would have the longer toe in the back, because it perches and looks
Yeah.
down for fish, where this is, fish eater, where this is a ground feeder.
Right,
There's no
forager.
way to,
Right.
the forager.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So here we are in flight. And this is a great picture where you can see, the primary feathers. These here are those giant primary feathers. And if a crane gets in an altercation with another crane, they do not go after the feathers. Because if a sandhill crane has a damaged primary feathers, that's going to impede their flight. If their flight is impeded, they are very subject to prey upon. So they protect those feathers. They do lots and lots of preening, and they molt as well. So they do lots of preening and they do lots of molting. But just notice talk about aerodynamic, right? I wonder if this was a model that the Wright brothers used. But we've got this incredibly beautiful long neck, right? Long neck. And then we've got the torso, and then we've got these incredibly long legs, and they typically hold the legs together. You don't see them flying, splayed out like this with their legs. They fly with their legs together. As opposed to the great egret here in flight has that S-shaped neck. So why do you think the great egret and the crane fly with an S-shaped neck? There's a reason.
Aerodynamic?
Correct. Aerodynamic. So cranes, because they weigh less, let me back up a minute. Egret and herons, how do they eat? They fish. Someone said they fish. And when they fish, they do what? They go.
Yeah.
So they need really strong neck muscle. Really strong neck muscle to do that. Cranes are foragers. They just kind of lollygag along, digging up stuff and eating, la. So their neck muscles, they're supported. They have to support the head, but yet they're not needed. And so these heavy muscles, strong muscles of the egret and the heron weigh more. So they have to pull that neck in to get that center of gravity. So their head is not too heavy, and they won't go. Isn't that smart? Crazy, yeah.
Looking at the aerodynamics, does that head on the crane give it any lift? Because imagine the muscular energy needed to keep that neck out there for hours on end.
I don't know how much the neck weighs as opposed to the rest of the body, but I think they get their lift from the wings.
Yeah.
And they're very good at riding thermals. They're very good at riding air currents. They use the air to, help move them forward.
Because the heron is a little more easier to carry a neck like that.
Right, because they don't fly long distances, right? Exactly. So if you're ever out in a place where you can see sandhill cranes, and you happen to see these other birds fly by with long necks and pretty good sized wings, but they got little stubby legs. What might that be? A goose. And ducks I feel so sorry for ducks. When I started watching cranes fly, because cranes fly like this, a really nice up and then a down, and a nice up. Crane, I mean, how does a duck? A duck is like this. Woo. I mean, if they stop doing this, boom, down they go. So have some sympathy for a duck. Because they're working hard to stay up in the air. They're not catching no thermal. And so so if you see, so there's other birds out there with, like I said, long necks, but they may not have the long legs. So we want to try to put it all together. Long neck, long legs, beautiful beat to the wing, beautiful beat to the wing. If I'm getting too animated, it's because I love these birds, right? And have you picked up on this yet? Okay, so there are leucistic sandhills. And so leucism is where they don't have the pigment to color their feathers. It's still a sandhill crane. It's not an egret. It doesn't become a whooping crane, which are also white. It's a sandhill crane, but it's leucistic. And I think there was one found in the Central Valley. I think it's been tagged. So, which is male and which is female? Let's take this one down here first. Which is the male down here? The green-headed, right? Which is the male up here?
The female one.
Not necessarily.
The female. Might be the bigger one, I think.
We don't know. If you were to run out there, grab that crane, flip it upside down, you still wouldn't know. They know, that's the important part. They know.
Yeah.
So cranes are monomorphic. So, and there are other bird species that are also monomorphic, which I learned about last night. So, blue jays are monomorphic. Black-capped chickadees.
So that just means
Doves.
monomorphic cranes.
Male and female look alike. Male and female look alike. And in many bird species, we're used to this dimorphic, which, in this case, these mallards, the male is the pretty one. Right? And why does he get to be pretty?
She's sitting on the nest.
Right? But he's got to attract the female. Right? He's got to attract the female. So he's got to look pretty. Right. So she is more muted, more natural color, so she can blend into the environment. So she can have the eggs and produce ducks.
So
Nature.
who do they know, is it the male or female sits on the eggs of the sandhill crane?
Both.
They do both. So I was wondering if it had to do with size.
Both. Both male and female sit on the eggs. And both male and female take care of the chicks and the pops up.
And maybe when Jane's talking about behaviors, that's probably the only way I've been able to identify the male and the female, but she'll tell you how
We'll get you in on the secret, so we
Yeah.
there's one behavior they exhibit that is a very good clue.
Yeah.
Is a very, very good clue. So yeah, so we learned a new word tonight, monomorphic. So here's crane close up. So again, we've got this beautiful red patch of skin. It is not feathers, it's skin. And it's a communication tool. Anybody here have a friend who, when they laugh, their cheeks flush? Or when you get mad, your cheeks flush? They do the same thing, but we don't really know what they're communicating, but they do. So they can enlarge that red scalp. They can make it bigger and they can make it smaller. Some say it might be, hey, if I'm here eating, I'm looking around, I'm eating, and all of a sudden you walk up and I go, now I may jab at you, and then all of a sudden I might make that red patch go bigger, which is a signal for you to back up. Now, which cranes can't do. Cranes cannot go backward also. Go in a circle, have to turn a circle. Okay, so the other interesting thing about this red crown patch is it doesn't come to fruition till they're around 2 years of age. So their first year, it's really, really faint. Second year, a little bit more pronounced. And so that's the way we can identify the potential age of a sandhill crane. And you also notice these beautiful white cheeks. beautiful, beautiful white cheeks. And so that doesn't come on until they're around 2 years of age as well. Okay. And then they have, and the eyes. I mentioned this a little bit ago. So the Sandhill crane eyes are where on their head? On the side. Where are our eyes? So if my eyes are on the side of my head, that means I am preyed upon. So I need peripheral vision. I need to see all around me. But if I have my eyes in front of my head, that's for a reason. That's so I can find my prey. So cranes' eyes are on the side of their head. Yes, sir.
Well,
They're in
now,
front.
but they can really turn their.
They can turn their head. Exactly.
Many,
and I-
many degrees. Is that's protection?
So I have a question, I have to find out, this is way off there. So you're saying the redhead doesn't develop till they're about 2 years. I wonder if it has to do with the iron oxide. No, it has nothing to do with iron oxide, they're getting into their body over a period of time.
No, it's genetically.
Just a
engineered.
genetic.
Anything to do with their blood?
Well, iron, yeah, that's what I'm saying in the blood.
Oh, right.
No. It's just they're genetically designed that way.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And if you notice, they have really super long beaks, right? And then this is the nostril. Right there, the big, what here in this picture, it looks quite large, and it is large, on their beak. That's how they get their air into them, into their lungs. So again, this long beak is for feeding and preening, right? And also it's an aggressive tool. It's a tool, a combative tool, if you will. Has anybody here raised a teenager? What do they eat? Meat a Sandhill crane. They eat everything as well. Now we have to go back and think about the Central Valley, thousands of years ago. Does anyone know what the Central Valley might have looked like thousands? It was an ocean, and hundreds of years ago, it was what? It was marsh. It was marsh and water, especially this time of year. And then we came and we started moving dirt around, and we started building roads, and we started building houses, and and I'll talk about this again in my presentation. But so when they came to the Central Valley because of food and water. They come here because of food and water, and the food was very plentiful. They lived on tubers and probably not as much grain as they do now. They live on a lot of corn now, and corn is a complex carbohydrate for them. They eat corn, they convert it into protein. Now why can't we do that? Why can't I eat your corn and it becomes, protein? This becomes, fat. So they eat everything. And then they often, especially when they're here in the Central Valley in the wintertime, they forage a lot in groups. They want to be together in groups, but when they go back to the nesting habitat, that's when it's a pair. And one pair of cranes needs about 40 acres of land to support themselves during the breeding and nesting season. That seems like a lot, right? 40, but And so again, here's a beautiful picture, and you can see that the tail feathers that Kathy was mentioning a little bit, kind of peeking out under there between the legs. And so this is a gorgeous shot of the feathers of a Sandhill crane. And they're very, very strong. They're just aren't they beautiful? They're just beautiful birds. They're just gorgeous, So the tail is very, very short feathers. And when I've watched cranes come in for landing, they fly in and then they drop their legs and then they come in and they land and they come in around 20 miles an hour. They come in about 20 and they stop in 2 stops, 1, 2. And they never run into another crane. And I've watched them on the Platte River and during migration season where there will be 200,000 cranes on the Platte and they don't run into each other. How that, and they take off, they don't run into each other. How they do that, I don't have any idea. But this is a great picture there. So this is a picture to give you an indication of how long that trachea is. The horn is to give you, it's about the length of a horn. And then it's got a very trumpet-like voice. Someone said that you can hear them occasionally around here. It's a very, very distinctive call. And I had that a little bit later on. And then as they age, that call will deepen. Which again, if you're ever around, if you're if you're out and you can be around kind of a small group of cranes, you might hear a crane whose voice is a little bit deeper. That means it likely indicates it's an older bird. Young cranes squawk. I mean, they're looking for their voice. They haven't found their voice yet. So a first or second year crane is pretty squeaky from that. And calls are innate. Meaning they know them when they're born. They learn them from their parents, so they're not taught. So this is the size of a Sandhill crane egg, which is about the size of my fist. The females lay one or two eggs a year. That's air and a spare. And so here's a picture of the female with her two little chicks on her back, and you can see that beautiful iron oxide in her feathers. So both parents incubate. Both parents will sit on the egg. They will take turns. One will sit on the egg, and the other will go out and get some food to eat, and then they'll come back, and the other one will go out and eat, and they do this. They don't ever leave those eggs untended. Because those eggs are like Kentucky Fried Chicken to an eagle. So so they build their nest. You can kind of see it here in this picture. Their nests are built in really marshy areas, and the nests are on the ground because they can't roost in trees. So their nests are on the ground, and they work really hard to blend them into the environment, so they cannot be seen.
You would think being so big, they'd be easy to spot.
Yeah, they sometimes will try to build nests in areas that may have some cover over it. I'm not going to be underneath a tree, but it might be in an area that they feel safer in. So here's that little chick, that cute little chick. So this chick has got to grow to full size in 70 days. Think about that. It takes us a year to learn to walk. This a newly hatched chick can walk within 8 hours of hatching. And they run the next day. And then they gain about 10% of their weight in a single day. And then they have to be ready to fly. If they're not ready to fly, our cranes and the cranes that come through, non-migratory cranes, they're going to die because their roosting habitat for our cranes, and I'll talk about that, is Northeast California, Southeast Oregon, Alaska, and all the way to Siberia. Our lessers migrate all the way down from Siberia and the coast of Alaska. And so they leave there because there's no food and there's no water. It's frozen. It freezes over. Yes.
Do the hatchlings eat the same as the adults do?
I think the parents do a little bit of that regurgitation early on, where they will eat something and then they'll do. Yeah.
Jane,
Yeah.
what's the average life expectancies?
So the oldest crane in captivity lived to be 70. That's pretty good. And I believe in the wild, it was in its 30s. In its 30s. Which is a very long lifespan.
That's,
for
is that an average or that's an anomaly?
I mean, it might be an anomaly. They deal with lots of challenges.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but they did find one, and he was banded, or she was banded. The bird was banded, And so they knew when they banned the bird and then they will track it throughout its lifespan. That's why banding is such a critical part of understanding bird migration and bird behaviors from there. So these little birds, they grow up really fast. So here they are. Here's the chick with mom and dad. So interesting thing about this is when if the female lays 2 eggs and the 1 egg hatches, if for some reason the parents aren't nearby when that 2nd egg hatches, the older bird is going to go after the younger bird because it's competition for food. So that's why the parents stay, pretty close to the nest when they have 2 eggs. And they can be born, a day or hatch out a day or 2 apart. And so here's this bird that maybe is 2 weeks old. 2 weeks old. So if you notice, there's no white cheeks. I mean, it looks a little like there's white cheeks, but there's no, this is feathers still. This is feathers here. And notice the fluffy, kind of the fluffiness. And now you can really see the knee a lot better, which is up in here.
Does the eye change at a certain time also? It's brown. Does it change the red?
Well, this one looks red too up there above. So
Yeah.
it might be just the way the picture was taken.
He doesn't have a red eye.
No, I don't think so. Yes.
And is the baby's color, what color the feathers are, or do you see that with the might
Well, right now this is the color of the feathers as they grow. Yeah, they haven't done that flicking up of the rust oxide. Yeah.
The feet look like the dinosaur feet, right?
Yeah.
Probably the same track, but evolutionary, they're fairly close to vultures, I think.
Yeah, they kind of look like vulture feet, don't they? Yeah, this one you can really see the length of the 3 toes, and you can just see that little back toe kind of sticking out there. One of our docents has an actual crane foot thing. He didn't kill the bird, he did the foot thing. Got it, the way you're supposed to get that stuff. I don't want to throw Mike under the bus. And so here's a parent and two chicks, or colts. And I'll talk about that. So again, you can see they don't have the white cheeks, and there's even not the beginning of a red scalp, so that's probably a 1st year. And these birds here could be maybe 1 or 2 months old.
So the beak changes color and the legs change color.
So here's some behaviors. And so, like I said earlier, when they're here in the Central Valley, they kind of hang out together. And when I see them in Nebraska, they hang out together during the day in the fields. And they fly together. They do everything. They're like on holiday. And when you go on holiday, sometimes you might go with your friends, right? Friends and family, and you do stuff together, right? So they're the same way. But when they go back north to start the breeding and the nesting process, again, they're solitary as a pair. And this is probably taken at Woodbridge based upon the plants we see, right, Kathy?
Yeah.
And so one of the most amazing things about these birds is they're incredibly family oriented. The family unit is critical to them. I put in there pair bond for life almost. And that's because as long as the pair mate and they continue to produce offspring, they will stay together as a pair. But if they mate, no eggs are produced, because they only mate, once. She only lays eggs once a year. It's not like a duck that has, 2 or 3 fletches, right? They just have 1 or 2 eggs a year. And so if they are not successful, if the mating is not successful, the couple will split and they will go find another mate. If a mate dies, they will find another mate because the need to procreate is such a strong thing. Okay.
Jane, I've also heard that they sometimes get separated because one crane may be from another part of the flyway versus where the mate is from. So sometimes in their migration,
they connect,
I'm going this way, or, well, I always go this way, and,
and they part company.
yeah, so they part company, and
Yeah,
so then they don't end up.
in the same. Well, then that's gonna make breeding very challenging.
Yeah, that was a very idea.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, sir.
How many years would they continue to procreate
Right.
on average?
So I think, I'm trying to remember, now, it's in my presenter notes, which I can't get to right now. I think they become sexually mature between 3 and 5 years of age. And then and I don't know how long they can be sexually active.
So you're saying in the wild, their lifespan is,
The longest one in the wild was at 30 years. Yeah. So mating of sandhill cranes, I've been told this, I have never seen this. One of the biologists I met a couple of years ago at Roe, and it's very unusual to see that behavior at Roe because it's not the right season. It's a little early, it's March, so a little bit early, but the male, because how you do that, right? So the male jumps onto the back of the female and like 1-2 pumps and off he hops and they both kind of walk around in separate directions. Okay, that's it. Okay, that's good. You did it. Let's see what happens.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Male doesn't do any dance or anything?
Well, so I'm gonna talk about that in a minute. I'll get to that in a minute. So the parents both teach the migration. The migration route is not innate. It must be taught. So the chicks are born up north. Let's just say for this purpose, outside of Homer, Alaska. So the chicks are ready to fly within 70 days, 70 to 80 days. They fly down here to the Central Valley with their parent. They spend all winter here with the parent. The parents fly the chick back up north with them. Now the parents can make a decision at that time. They can kick that teenager out, say you're on your own, or they can say, you can stay. And they'll bring them back down here to the wintering habitat. They can then say, okay, you're on your own, or they can take them back. It's up to the family unit to decide that. And so, but the important part of this is that they have to learn this migration route from an adult, typically a parent. And someone was talking to me before the presentation and they said they're always talking in the sky, right? They're always jabbering to each other, and they're always saying, where are you? Are you still here? Where are we going? What are we doing? What's going on? They want to know that their mate is there. They want to know that their mate and their family members are there. Because they can't turn around and look, right? They got to keep their eyes focused ahead. You guys are asking wonderful questions. And so this is just a really lovely picture of a pair. And you can see where the one of the pair is preening, doing that, and you can see where they're standing in, maybe 2 feet of water, which is that's where they like to be at night. So they roost in water. They roost in water. And I want the circulatory system of a sandhill crane because they have these incredibly long legs. Their veins and arteries are intertwined. So the warm blood leaves their chest cavity, travels down their leg, meets that cold blood coming up because their feet are in the water or on frozen ground or whatever, meets the cold air coming up, meets that warm blood going down, and it regulates their body temperature. Who here has cold feet? Wouldn't we love to have that kind of circulatory system? That we can move that blood up and down our legs so fast. Ducks have the same thing. So here's oh my gosh, I left my box in the car. This is a Sandhill Crane Display Dictionary that you can buy on Amazon. You can buy it from International Crane Foundation. You can buy from Roe Audubon Sanctuary in Nebraska. But we're going to show some pictures here and talk about their behaviors. So this is jumping. Just jumping up in the air. It's a nice sunny day. Sometimes they jump because guess what? I feel good. I want to jump. Anybody dance in their kitchen every now and then? I just feel good. Turn some music on, do a little dancing. They do the same thing. They love to dance. dancing is about pair bonding. So scientists have discovered that if cranes increase their dancing, a pair increases their dancing behavior, that's the female sending a signal that her hormones are getting ready. She's getting ready to, to produce. And so it's time for the male to pay attention, get ready too. So this dancing is the way they strengthen their bond. It's like going out on dates with your spouse, right? Or your mate.
That's good.
Or your partner. So this is where you're gonna be able to make some money. This is how you can make some money when you go out. So if you're ever down at Merced, and maybe it's a windy day, and you see a group of cranes, they're all kind of looking a different way, and all of a sudden one of them turns to face the wind, into the wind. And then pretty soon a couple of the other cranes turn and they face into the wind. And then all of a sudden, then you say to your friends, I bet you $5 these birds are gonna take off. And your friend's gonna go, sure, I'll bet you. I'll bet you. And then all of a sudden these birds are gonna start leaning. I can't lean it, I'll fall on my face. They start leaning. My center of gravity gets. They'll start leaning. That's called intend to fly. They fly off into the wind. So they get that lift. And fly into the wind. So this is called intend to fly, and it's a way that you can make some money. So here's another, this is a pretty exaggerated picture of intend to fly. There's no doubt that they're not going to lift off in this particular photo. But again, notice that beautiful red scalp and those, predominant white cheeks and those incredible primary feathers. Look at the strength of those feathers. It's amazing. This is called bill spar. And if you notice, this is where I said they use those toes as a defensive tool. So if you notice, they're throwing their feet toward each other right here. And then their beaks are getting kind of close together. They don't knock their beaks together, but they do this. This is an aggressive action. This is like, hey, let's, we're serious here. This is not dancing. Yeah.
That would be territorial then.
Right, probably because you invaded my space and I've tried to give you clues and you're not paying attention. And so now you may be pissed.
So that's not necessarily two males, it could be two females, right?
I don't know. I don't know. I've never asked anybody. I think that's a good question for Gary Ivy. I don't know if you would know because they're monomorphic.
Yeah.
So you would not know if it's a female fighting against another female.
But you said they know.
They know. That's the important part. They know. Right. And so this is called a jump break behavior here. And this is kind of a happy dance. This is kind of a happy dance where they jump straight up in the air. And sometimes they'll pick up, grass or something like that when they jump up in the air. And again, this is not an aggressive behavior. This is fun. This is again a dancing kind of type thing. They're pretty happy. This is down at Woodbridge. This is at the South Unit. I can tell by the levees in the background and the tower.
They never spear the sandpipers for food.
No.
No.
One interesting thing about birds I've noticed, particularly, when you're around waterfowl, all birds of all different kinds, all hang out together, don't they? And they all seem to get along. And I just don't know why we can't do the same.
They're not birds.
That's right. There's plenty of resources here. There's plenty of water, there's plenty of food. We don't have to, fight for it, so to speak. And so this is this is an example of probably a pair dancing in the beautiful sunset. And this is just straight up jumping, just like you're jumping rope.
Their legs look so fragile. Do they ever break their legs?
Well, if they do break a leg, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
They become food.
Yeah,
They
they
become
die.
food for someone.
Yeah.
I know for the last, I think 2 years ago, there are power lines. Power lines is a pretty serious threat to cranes. And at Roe, at the Platte, there are power lines across the Platte River and power lines on the country roads. And so sometimes birds will fly they will fly into those power lines. They won't say,
But
if
when
they
they
break a
land-
wing, they're not going anywhere.
I'm in their leg.
Right,
They're so frail.
but they're not. They're very strong.
They're strong.
They're very strong. They're very
Yeah.
strong. We must have had a sick bird last year. And it was interesting behavior. It was a young bird and it was in the water. And anytime it would go near other cranes, they would all go away from it. They all went away from me. And I'm like, oh, help your buddy. But, yeah.
We can't.
Yeah. And it was there for a couple days and then it wasn't there anymore. And I talked to the director and he's like, Jane, we do not interfere with nature. We do not interfere with nature. This is all part of learning. This is all part of understanding about these animals. But it was sure hard to see. Sure hard to see. This is the unison call, and this is what Kathy was talking about a little bit earlier. This is the one area where we can identify the behavior, the difference between a male and a female. I'll use my hands. This is my favorite hand thing. So the male, typically they do unison call throughout the day, but the male will raise his head straight up and the female box. The male comes straight up, the female box. So early in the morning, it might go something like this. Are you ready to go yet? No, not yet. Ready to go now? No, not yet. I'm going. Okay. So that's what they do.
Then he leans forward.
And he leans forward and off they go. Off they go. And off they go. Off they go. So this is an affirmation of pair solidarity. It's the pair saying to other cranes, we're together. We're a pair. We're strong. There's two of us here. So don't mess with us. So here, I think if this can you hit the enter button, see if the sound comes up?
I'm going to turn up the volume on the TV here.
Hope it comes up. Get it. That's not a crane. That's not a crane. It's not gonna show up. Well, okay, I had the different calls. It worked at my house.
I take a presentation mode, maybe.
So, okay, let's try that. No.
Click on the little speaker that's on the thing.
Oh, yeah.
Bird.
There,
There we go.
in the play. It doesn't like it. Sorry.
Yeah, it says unreadable, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And you don't want to hear me even have tried to.
Come on.
Bring my rattle. But I forgot to tell you when I was talking about their long neck and their throat. They have a 24-inch throat, but a 48-inch trachea. So, where does that go? Where does another 24 inches go? It goes back and forth in their chest. And that is what gives them their very distinctive call. And I tried to find a good picture of a crane, trachea, with it, the windpipe. This is the windpipe, right, coming down. And it's really very, very fascinating to see that picture of that. And you can probably go on YouTube the next couple of days and just Google crane calls. And you can hear them yourselves because they're very different. They mean different things. I'm sorry. Can you imitate it? No. I can do a lot of things, but I can't do that. Yeah. Okay. So why cranes are here in our Central Valley? So here we have our waterfowl migration flyway map. I'm sure many of you are very familiar with this, right? So we are in the red. We are the Pacific flyway. That should not be news to anybody here. So our cranes, like I said, we're here in the Central Valley. Right around me here. So our cranes come from Southeast Oregon, Southeast Washington. Those are graders. Graders weigh a little bit more. Remember, they weigh between 9 and 12 pounds, so they don't migrate as far. And so the lessers weigh less. And so they will come all the way down from Homer, Alaska, and Siberia is like right over there. Right over there. Now, in the central flyway, which you notice the state of Nebraska is right there. That's where they get, again, those 500,000 sandhill cranes. Those are lessers, sandhill cranes, because they migrate from way up here, way up there. And they come from over here, and some come from over here. So it's like an hourglass. So it goes like this into the Platte, and then it goes back out again. And they winter down here on the coast of Texas, Louisiana, and into this part of Mexico.
We also have the greater Sandhill cranes nesting in Modoc County.
Okay,
So
northern California.
yeah.
We're found there, so.
And so here's some migration factoids. I've covered several of these already, but it's taught by their parents. That's why when we do things to their environment, like build a road, a marshland dries up, they're losing those visuals. They're losing those visuals. So I use rivers a lot. I live really close to the Sacramento River in South Sacramento. And I was walking my dog a couple of years ago in the spring, and all of a sudden I'm like, huh, what? And I get sad because they're leaving, right? They're heading north. But this group of cranes was following the Sacramento River. They were just flying right up over that river. Heading north. So migration begins to the Central Valley when it gets too cold up there. And again, because they lose, it freezes. The ground freezes and the water freezes. So they have to leave or they'll die, right? They'll freeze to death. Now in Nebraska, 2 years ago, it got so cold that the Platte River froze. And it's not very deep at that time of year. It gets a little bit deeper in the spring. But some of the birds developed, the staff there called them ice bracelets, ice ankle bracelets. So the birds, literally, their feet are frozen. The ice forms around their ankle, and they literally can't move until it falls. The sun comes up and begins to fall. They can't go anywhere. Yeah.
Do the cranes migrate all together? Do they migrate more or less individually?
They typically migrate in groups, but when they get to their nesting habitat, then they split off into their own.
How hard can it be?
It varies.
Thousands?
Oh, no, I mean, ours, I don't think we would have a group of, there might be thousands in Nebraska. Because there's just a lot more cranes there than we have here. I think our population, Kathy, is around 30,000 in the whole Central Valley.
Right.
And the Central Valley is very big.
Very good.
It's very big,
And
so.
our groups tend to be like 30 to 40 birds in a group as a large group. But more often than not, they're smaller than that.
So they stay here, they start arriving here in late September, and then they stay until late February. So you still have time to see them. You still can come down to Merced, probably is the closest location for you. And then when they're in migration, they can go up over a mile in height up in the air. They go over mountains. They can go 20,000 feet. I did read somewhere that planes for a pilot was flying a plane over the Himalayas and saw sandhill cranes out the window of the plane. The Himalayas are what, 35,000 feet or something like that. So that's pretty doggone impressive. So they can fly up to 200 to 400 miles a day, and they use thermals. They will fly at night if weather conditions, if it's a full moon, they will migrate at night. Greater Sandhills, again, they only migrate about 200 to 300 miles, whereas our lessers, they come maybe 1,000 miles, 1,200 miles. Again, we're talking about the Pacific Flyway cranes we have here.
And it's interesting to see the flights on the maps that you've been shared by the biologists, that they come down from Alaska, they stay pretty much on the coast. And then they start making it around Washington, they start coming a little bit further inland, but they basically come into the valley at Sacramento. That's why Jane gets to hear them at her house, and we don't get to hear them up here, because not very often do they come all the way down into the Central Sierra before they cut over into, Lodi is north of us, and most of those birds are gonna be going into Lodi. And then some will come down into Merced and even fewer down into San Diego, but yeah, they stay right along the coast, the lines all came right along the coast, and then right about Washington and Oregon, they start.
They start cutting back, they start cutting east.
Yeah, a bit more east, and then pretty soon they're all over there on the, coming straight across outside,
Wonder what river they're following, what rivers they would be following, because most of the rivers go east and west, right?
I think it's maybe, it might be,
The Willamette goes north south.
Yeah, oh.
And I've seen Sandhill up on
Okay,
the
oh,
Willamette,
okay.
Columbia.
Okay. Yeah. So again, our graders nest in Northeast California, Eastern Oregon, British Columbia. And there's about 4,000 to 5,000 of those. And then our lessers nest in Alaska, or Arctic tundra. And then we have around 15,000 lessers. Kathy mentioned a gentleman by the name of Gary Ivey. And Gary Ivey is a research biologist with the International Crane Foundation. He worked for Fish and Wildlife for years and years, and Sandhill cranes is his species of choice. And so he's our kind of resident expert, and he lives up in Bend, Oregon. So he typically speaks at our Sandhill Crane Festival. So if you want scientific information, that's the guy to go talk to. And so they as I said, they roost in water. And they roost in water. Why? Because they can't roost in trees. They particularly like water that's 6 to 8 inches deep, and they want those long sight lines. So you're not going to see a crane laying in your backyard pond like you might have a heron come in your backyard pond. Cranes need long visuals because they want to see predators coming up. And they want safe foraging. So typically, you'll see one part of the one member of the pair will be eating and the other one will always be looking. They're always looking and always watching to be sure that they are safe. And so this is the San Joaquin Delta, which is where our Woodbridge Ecological Reserve is. But I didn't realize the wetlands is 1,000 square miles. That's pretty good. California Delta is very, very large. And it's been around for, 10,000 years. So it's got a lot of different waterfowl that come in. We have tundra swans come in, snow geese come in, although they tend to go up by woodland more, but they do come down for us. So we have lots and lots of different waterfowl there. And so this is where you can see them down in the Central Valley. I mentioned Woodbridge Ecological Reserve. We have 2 units. We have the South Unit and the North Unit, and it took me 2 years to figure out why they're called what they are. But it's because I'm not the smartest knife in the drawer sometimes. North Unit is on the north side of the road, and the South Unit is on the south side of the road. So we meet our tours with Department of Fish and Wildlife at the South Unit. It is open all the time. There's no gate. You can pull up in there anytime you want. It does require a California Lands Pass because it is state land. You just have to hope that the warden or the gate, or the ranger doesn't come by. And then we take people we do a little sermon on the mound at the South Unit. We get in cars, everybody returns to their car, and then we drive down to the North Unit and we experience a fly-in there. But it's really fun to hear them in the morning when they're waking up, especially if it's a misty, foggy day. They really sound prehistoric, and it's really, really cool. There's other areas too where you can see it. Staten Island, which is an island in the Delta. It's right here. that's owned by the Nature Conservancy. And they do lease the land to farmers, and they must farm with practices that are supportive of waterfowl. So they do grow a lot of corn there, and they don't completely, cut the corn. They cut the corn, but they leave the stubble in the ground until winter, until migration is over, and then they go back out and turn the soil and get it ready for planting
What about
again.
pesticides and things like that?
They cannot use those there.
They can't?
They cannot.
Okay.
They cannot. And then we also have the Consumnes River Preserve, which is a little bit north. I don't think it's up on this map. And so here it was formed in the 1940s. There was only 5 nesting pairs of sandhill cranes in California. That really wasn't that long ago. It really was not that long ago. And so the sad part about it is that only 4% of our historic wetlands are what we have left. That means we've lost 96% of our wetlands. Development, highways, agriculture, yeah, that's where we've lost them. So in 1983, greater sandhills were listed as a threatened species. 1988, California Fish and Wildlife began the purchase of the land. Its official name is Phil and Marilyn Eisenberg Crane Reserve. Phil Eisenberg was a California legislator who was pretty instrumental in securing some federal funds to assist in the purchase. And the Woodbridge Ecological Reserve was a former duck club. And I have come to have great fondness for duck hunters. Because they are huge conservationists. And many wonderful acres of land are protected because people that enjoy duck hunting realize that if they don't have habitat, there's not going to be ducks. And so, there's lots of ducks. There's not as many sandhill cranes, but there's lots and lots of ducks. So I've grown to really appreciate duck hunters and what they bring. And that's why, and they also have to purchase, hunting permits. Which also helps support this. And so that's why you have to have a lands pass to come onto California lands for birding now. We have to pay our fair share as well.
You have to know if the hunters are now using steel shot rather than lead shot.
I think they are, because lead is poisonous, especially the condors.
California,
Yeah.
it's illegal to use the lead. All the other states, I think, are still using lead. Here,
California. Thank you for that. So the reserve is 354 acres, but Fish and Wildlife maintains about 30 acres, for 30,000 acres statewide. And then I saw a program, I heard a program, it's called Pop-Up Wetlands or Pop-Up something. It's with the Nature Conservancy is working with farmers in the Delta to, they're paying farmers to not just, leave the soil the way it is, but then it provides kind of a pop-up habitat for migrating waterfowl certain times of the year. I heard about it from an organization called Blue Ocean, which operates out of Marin, which is a really cool organization. If you want to learn more, you can check them out there. And then they do work collaboratively with farmers and other agencies to do this. And so this is kind of the Eisenberg Reserve. So we have the Weir South. It looks pretty dry because it does dry up in the summer. And then this is the North Unit up over there. And then this is called the Black Hole, which is a private duck club. And again, cranes don't care if they're in a duck club. They go in there and they're happy to have the cranes in there. Obviously, they don't shoot them, but that is against the law. And so this whole area here was developed by a gentleman named Jacob Brack. And Jacob Brack came to California, I think from Sweden or Norway, I can't remember which country. And he wanted to become, he came in there 1849. What was going on, right? What was going on in 1840?
Gold.
Oh, we're all looking for gold. Well, he discovered it was easier to mine the gold miners than it was to do the gold mining himself. So he started stores. He built a store and he started growing cattle and things like that. So he was one of the ones that first started reclaiming taking the land from being a marshland and turning it into agricultural land. And so it's called Brack's Track. And so this, in the fall, around mid to late September, Fish and Wildlife begins to pump water in from this fork of the McCollum River, and they pump it into here and they flood this area, and they do the same at the North Unit. So it is deliberately flooded in September, and then we get the natural rains that keeps adding more and more water. But if you, and I have a picture here. So this is what it looks like in the summer months. This is a picture, I believe, of the North Unit. This is North Unit. And then here it is flooded back in late fall. And then this is a picture of our blind. So it is open air. We do have 360 walk around. Go the back side of this, you can see Mount Diablo, which is quite beautiful in the sunset. You must stay in the blind when you're here. You can't walk outside because the cranes see you. They're not going to come in, and we want them to come in.
So where, is that on Woodbridge Road?
Yes, this is it. This is behind a locked gate. You can
Oh,
only get to
yes.
this on a tour. You can also, this club can also contact Fish and Wildlife and ask for a private tour. So we do these during the week. So if any of you want to get a group together and travel on down, we have a number of docents. I'm not the only docent. We have a lot of docents that would love to take you out and take you into the North Unit, but you must be with a docent to get into that North Unit to see this blind. We also have there's an open doorway there. We have a room in there just filled with all things printed, lots of maps and books and stuff like
If we
that.
were to do that, would you know where the swans were? So we could actually see them. Last time we saw them so far away.
Yeah, I don't know if we've got swan. I haven't driven down Woodbridge Road, but you can drive all the way down the
We've
road.
seen the swans.
Yeah, okay.
Long way away.
Yeah. I haven't seen swans yet this year. So again, this is the birds just kind of hanging out in the flooded area. And here's a example of, kind of a little happy dance here. I'm up here having a really good time. And then these are some of the challenges that the cranes face. And so the wetlands are in this green area. This is Tulare Lake. This was the 1850s. And this was the 1990s. It's even worse now. It's even worse now in terms of loss of wetlands. And when you consider that our sandhill cranes and other waterfowl rely upon water, and they need water, we gotta have water. So that's why it's so important that we have a number of agencies come together, like the state and the feds and Nature Conservancy, and a lot of people working together collaboratively to provide the right habitat for many different waterfowl. And so they do get animal predators. If a fox would love to get his hands or her hands on a sandhill crane, but it's not going to happen. It's surprising, because I don't know who took this picture, but it's a really great shot. Normally these birds, if they see a predator coming, sometimes these birds will gather together as a group and they will approach the animal that's coming toward them. And so if you're a little tiny fox and all of a sudden you see 12 or so cranes coming toward you with these big old beaks like this, wouldn't you hightail it out of there? Yes, sir.
Is that a huge industrial complex in the background?
Yeah. Sutter Home does have a wine processing plant, not too far, so you can't see it from here. And so hunting is allowed. I can't imagine anyone wanting to eat a sandhill crane. They used to be called ribeye in the sky. Back in 1849, apparently the sky was so full of cranes that somebody just had to put their gun up in the air and shoot it, and down fall a bird. And so the meat of a sandhill crane is about the size of a ribeye. I don't know what they taste like, and I will never know what they taste like. And so they are hunted in 15 states and 3 Canadian provinces. But interestingly enough, they are not a game bird in Nebraska, but they are in every state around Nebraska. So the cranes just have to, they have to make it through Texas and Louisiana, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Arkansas. They get to Nebraska and go, whew, and then they got to take off again and head up north. So yeah, It's a
It
sad,
has to do with their population, the population in that
It's-
central flyway.
it's
is
bigger.
Huge
it's bigger, yeah,
compared to the Pacific.
it is bigger.
He's-
And interestingly enough, about maybe 7 or 8 years ago, Nebraskans were asked to remove the sandhill crane from the not a game bird list, and they defeated it. They defeated it, which was really pretty cool. So this is an example of the power line. So you see these things hanging from the lines, and this is a little signal to hopefully tell a bird, hey, look, there's something here. In Nebraska, they're doing something really cool. They're laying, because they've got a couple power lines that go right across the river, just right where the birds migrate or land for roosting. And they've spread, I think it's blue light, they're LED lights. They lay them on a string across the top of the power lines, and the birds can see them. They can see the blue light. And so they have been noticing, they're tracking that, they're studying that, and they have been noticing a decrease in the number of collisions with those particular power
What
lines.
about the windmills on 12? Is it?
I don't think they go that far.
They go
They
for
don't.
that far,
I know eagles have a real problem.
yeah.
Hawks.
In that whole area.
Yeah, they fly into those quite a bit, and that's a close up of those. Orchards are a problem. Who doesn't love a good walnut or something like that? But they plant the trees, are relatively close together. And if a crane, they might kind of, posy around the edges of the orchard, but they're not going to go very far into it because they can't get out. I can't lift off. If I'm surrounded by these thick trees, I can't get out. So they don't go in there. So orchards is a problem, as are vineyards. Again, they might walk around a little bit at the edges, maybe go in a foot or two, but they're not going to walk all the way through those rows of vines. And this is how you're all going to be craniacs when you leave here, I know. So craniacs stop wherever they are and hop out of their car and look at the birds. Yeah. We don't care if we're on a highway, we don't care, we just stop and look at the birds. And so you also have to know the lingo. So young cranes are sometimes called a chick, and then when they start to walk, they're called a colt. And some say it's because when they run next to their parent, they look like a young colt. A male crane is called a roan, which is another horse term for a male color. Female cranes are called a mare. And a flock, a group of cranes can be called a herd or a siege or a sedge. But you can say, oh, look at that herd of sandhill cranes up there. And people go, what? What are you talking about? You gotta know the lingo. Sedge. A sedge is a plant.
You can't have a gaggle of cranes.
You can't have a gaggle of cranes. Or a murder of cranes either. You can't have a murder of cranes. So, our conservation efforts are to continue to increase the population of them. We want to restore and enhance and certainly maintain their migration and wintering habitats. And we really want to protect this greater sandhill crane habitat. And then we want to increase birding. We want more people to bird and more people to take photography and learn more, which is why we put on the Lodi Sandhill Crane Festival every year, is to help educate the public around these birds. And then you can support the cranes right now tonight when you go home. You can make a donation to the Lodi Sandhill Crane Association. Whoop, whoop, you can do that. There's another organization in Sacramento called Save Our Sandhill Cranes, and their festival is coming up, I think in February, the first weekend in February in Galt. If you're interested, the Lodi Sandhill Crane Festival is the first weekend in November, the first full weekend in November. There's certainly Audubon, California, Nature Conservancy, come to Audubon in Nebraska. Crane Trust, which is also in Nebraska, and then certainly the International Crane Foundation in Wisconsin. But I heard Jane Alexander, film and stage actress, speak once at the Crane Festival they used to host in Nebraska. And there's a lot of people want our money, right? A lot of people want money from us, right? So her advice, which I now use, is you find one local organization that you want to support, you find one state or regional organization, and you find one national or international. And that's where you You support them, you support them. And I thought that was really, I thought that was really pretty good, some pretty good advice. So tips on observing cranes, number one is turn off that doggone phone. Use your senses. Sometimes if you're out and wherever you're birding, just close your eyes. If you're safe, it's a safe place to close your eyes. And then, cup your hands around your ears and just listen. Just be where your feet are, is what I say. I say that to myself all the time. Be where my feet are, Jamie, for God's sakes, Move slowly and quietly and stay in your paw. Cranes are pretty, they're skittish. They're skittish. And absolutely don't leave food and don't leave anything behind. Just leave the little footsteps. And so I want to thank you for joining me this evening. I hope I didn't talk too long, but before I close, do I have time for a little bit more? Aldo Leopold said cranes are the trumpets in the orchestra of evolution. I think it's really cool. So this is just a couple of paragraphs. This is from a book called Bewilderment by Richard Powers. And so this is about a little boy and his father. The mother has passed away, so it's a little boy and the father kept taking the son out into nature. So they're standing outside on the hill. And this is the boy. His hands waved in every direction. They froze when something primordial signed the air. Robbie saw them first, that's the boy. Still mere specks, a family of Sandhill cranes, 3 of them flying southward in loose formation toward winter quarters that the young one had not yet seen. They were late leaving, but the whole autumn was weeks late as next spring would be to arrive early. They drew near along a liquid thread. Their wings, gray shaws trimmed in black, arched and fell. The long dark tips of their primary feathers flexed like spectral fingers. They flew outstretched, an arrow from beak to claw, and in the middle, between the slender neck and legs, came a bulge of body that seemed too bulky to get airborne, even with all the pumping of those great wings. The sound came again, and Robbie grabbed my arm. First one, then another, then all 3 birds unspooled a chilling cord. They came so close, we could see the splashes of red across the bulks of their head. Dinosaurs, Dad. The birds passed over us. Robbie held still and watched them wing away to nothing. He seemed frightened and small, unsure how we got here on the edge of the woods, water and sky. At last his fingers loosened their grip on my wrist. How would we ever know aliens? We can't even know aliens. Thank you for coming to. Yes, sir.
It would be a couple 100,000 on the South Platte.
Yeah, 500,000.
500.
So crane, the crane Audubon, it's called the Ian Nicholson Center at Road Sanctuary, which is right outside, about 20 miles from Kearney, Nebraska, right off Interstate 80. So you can go on their website now and make a reservation to get into a blind. We do tours in the morning and tours at night. We take 25 people into the blind, and the rest people in the valley get into the blind to be on the river to see that. We do them the morning blinds. You meet at the center at 5:45 a.m. You're done by night, and in the evening we go out about 5:45.
So much joy.
Truly, if it's not on your list this year, please put it on the list for next year because it is the largest animal migration in North America. And it's easier to cancel your reservation than to get one. So they just opened reservations the 1st of January. So please come see me. Any other questions? You guys have been a great audience. I really appreciate it. That's good chocolate.
Oh, well, that's great.
Oh, thank you. Did I go too
think
long?
if you put them all with a very good, everything's like
I can understand the shape of it, either, though, some.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Otherwise.
No, it's not, I can't say, I'm not, it's not state, it's not state, it's gotta
It's
be.
shape, you know, it's an airport.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, so look at it, I could just imagine.